my journey in a nutshell, just to tell you where I came from. So my parents were always heavily involved in church, like Laura was saying. They were missionaries in Papua New Guinea, and I was along for the ride. Lived here for a few years, so it is wonderful to be here. And did a whole bunch of other stuff. Dad started Vision College up in Hamilton and heavily involved in APO and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I did all the good Christian things that you do when you're a good Christian. It's all went wrong. I would now say what took me so long. So that's where I'm at now, and that happened over the space of probably 3 or 4 years, from my late 20s up until a little while ago. So this space of what I'm going to talk about is how I got from there to where I am now. So, brace yourself. I found that as a Christian, it's very hard to actually even think about a lot of these topics. So we've kind of got, as people, we've got an inbuilt capacity for self-deception in a way, and that there's a lot of studies that show that people are really ready to accept evidence which bolsters their point of view, and they severely discount any evidence which counteracts their point of view. That's in any field, it's not just in religion. It's been studied quite well. I was reading one just the other day that they were studying people's political beliefs, and they gave them maths equations where the answers to maths equations contradicted their political beliefs. And they found that people's maths ability plummeted just because they just couldn't bring themselves to contradict their presupposed beliefs. So there's that just as a general people thing. Also, the church has a lot of inbuilt defence mechanisms. So there's the whole thing about faith. Faith is the ultimate virtue. Never mind reason and facts and all that sort of stuff. Faith is where it's at. And then if you leave the church, there's the whole, you're losing your whole community thing. Not to mention burning in hell forever, which is, so there's a lot of defence mechanisms. So it took me a while to get to the point where I could even ask questions. And the first real inkling I got was when we left Eastside APO for a whole lot of reasons, which I won't go into. But that was really the first indication that something was wrong in this Christian world and that not everything was rosy and right. I've got some very good friends who are a lesbian couple, and this was another thing that early on was like, hang on, this doesn't quite make sense. These people are evil in the eyes of the church, but they're the most loving, kind, nice people I know, and probably the most good people I know. How do you balance that up? And that was another, an early indication. But the big hit was when I went to my parents and I was just talking to them and saying, I've got all these faith issues and all these doubts and stuff, and thinking, I'll get some wise counsel from my parents. And they're like, we don't believe all that anymore anyway, we haven't done for years. And that floored me. And it took me a long time to come to grips with that. But and I thought I've got my own faith. I've gone through the arguments for and against. I believe this on my own. I've got personal relationships and all that sort of stuff. But when my parents said that, basically what it did is give me the space to treat some of those doubts that I had as legitimate questions to be answered rather than doubts to be fought against. So that gave me the wiggle room. So basically, that got me to a point where I could say, okay, now there is questions to be answered, and I can go about them and actually try and answer them rather than just trying to avoid the question or have faith or that sort of thing. So this was a long process of peeling back beliefs. It wasn't like one argument, someone comes up to me and says, blah, 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 this is the argument why you shouldn't believe in God. And I said, okay, it was a long several-year process of peeling back the different things that I believed.
thing that I came across was this: hold your beliefs lightly, for some of them are wrong. I actually posted this on Facebook, and I got some interesting responses from my Christian friends saying, "Yeah, but not the beliefs about God, though. All the other beliefs might be wrong." But, and where I came to this from is that if you look at the number of different beliefs in the world, so say you believe in God, and I don't, so there's 50-50 chance that one of us is right because they're mutually contradictory. And then if another belief, say Christianity is the correct religion versus all the other religions, say 50-50 chance, just to make it easy, and then is the Catholic Church the true church? You can very easily, that's just a big one. You can filter down, what about the Trinity and what about transubstantiation and all the. You can easily come up with a large number of different doctrinal points. And I figured out that in order for you to be the only person in the entire world who holds the same set of beliefs that you do, all you need is 33 different points. And that's not me. I can easily come up with 33 different things where we might differ on. And that's only with the black and white. That's not shades of grey on any of these questions. So basically that says to me that the chance of me actually being right about what I believe, about everything I believe, is incredibly small. And it's incredibly stupid of me to think that me, out of all the people in the world, has the truth. So therefore some of the things I believe are wrong. That was an interesting point. As a Christian who was convinced that he knew the truth, that was an interesting point. And it led on to, does God care what we believe? Because if I think that maybe I'm the only one, if I happen to be that lucky person who's got everything right, I'm the only one who believes all the right things, therefore God will save me and all the rest of you are stuffed. So that led me on to think, well, maybe there's an awful lot of stuff that God doesn't actually care about what we believe, which was interesting. So therefore all of the schisms and the splits and all the things that Christians argue about and fight about, maybe God just doesn't actually care about them at all. So who cares? I had a bit of a think about the soul. Does it exist? What is it? The fact that now we can explain everything about someone's personality and character within the brain, and there's been a lot of experiments done on this as well, that you can alter someone's personality and their character and their memories by affecting the brain, and people who have strokes or other brain injuries can become completely different people. So if all of a person's character is contained within their brain, what does that leave for the soul to do? What is it? Where does it get there? Does it come there at conception? Does it come there at birth? Couldn't answer it in a way that was useful, so does it even exist? As a Christian, you hear a lot of people's testimonies about their personal experiences with God, and it's all well and good. As you were saying before, you can't really contradict someone's experiences, but I could also point you to a Muslim who has basically exactly the same religious experience that you do, feels all the same things. I can point you to a Buddhist, point you to 100 different religions, and they all have exactly the same religious experience that we do. And they can say, I prayed for healing and I got healed and all this sort of stuff. And so, to me, that says either two options. Doesn't matter what you believe, and everything will lead you to heaven, and we could all be happy and lovely. Or there's something else which explains religious experiences in terms of something fundamentally human, not an external thing. So I did some research on this, as I do. So there's a whole lot of answers in terms of evolutionary psychology, in terms of what can explain this, and it may be one or a multitude or something else entirely. I don't know the exact answer to this one. One option or one explanation is that as children, when we're born, we don't have the capacity to reason. So the more likely we are to follow the instructions of some superior figure, such as our parent, unquestioningly, the more likely we are to not be eaten by lions and therefore survive and pass that trait on. There's also the capacity to see an agent behind something. So if you're walking through the woods and you see a stick and you're in Africa, your first instinct will be a snake or a person or something. It won't be a stick. And then once you examine it closer, you think, okay, it's a stick. So our first instinct when we see something happening is to go, okay, who caused that? Who did it? What animal was moving? And again, that's a survival strategy. If we don't see that, then we're more likely to be evil. So what that means is that we might say, okay, we've seen something's happening out ahead. What is it? It must be an external agency. Let's call it God and ascribe characteristics to it. There's a lot of stuff behind that I won't really go into, but yeah, the fact that other people have equally valid religious experiences was a big question for me. The church, I know a lot of you probably have problems with the church as well, from what I've heard. This is separate from faith and separate from individual Christians who can be lovely, wonderful people. But the church as a whole, from my experience with, just directly with my family being missionaries and then being heavily involved in the church when we got back, there's an awful lot of dodgy stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Which again, yeah. Not to mention just the church as a whole. Look at Catholic Church with pedophile priests and all of there's a huge amount of stuff that goes on in the church that is bad, and everyone would acknowledge it's bad. But the question I had was that if God has sent the church here to be his representative on earth, he's kind of done a pretty bad job of picking it. And as an omnipotent, wonderful being, shouldn't he have done a bit better job of making sure that his representatives are representing him well? Morality was a big one. This is kind of relating back to my lesbian friends. I think that the church likes to say that it's the foundation of morality, and without the church, where would we be? We'll be out raping and killing and pillaging, and why wouldn't we? Because there's no morality. I found the opposite to be the case. That there's a lot of stuff that the church does that society's moved on beyond. Slavery is a big one, just to pick it from the Bible. All for it. From the Bible, let's do it. Why not? Now, society's moved on and thinks slavery is horrendous. I was talking to Rachel on the way down the plane. She was telling me there's a pastor of what you'd think is a fairly progressive church in Hamilton who don't allow women on the leadership team because they think it's wrong. It's against the Bible. Again, society's moved on. Women are equal to men, and for the church to say otherwise, to me now, just seems backward. And same with homosexuality was another big one. Society's moved on. We treat homosexuals as equal to other people because they are but people. We love them and we care for them just the same we do with any other people. So why is the church, which professes love, so keen on subjugating the so morality? Science and evolution was probably the final tipping point for me. That was because a whole lot of other stuff had kind of been peeled back for me in terms of, okay, maybe the church isn't quite right, but there's still the Bible and there's still Jesus, and God still must have made the world because we somehow. So the big tipping point for me was I actually went to a Christian conference thing up in Auckland, and a scientist who was a Christian stood up and said, I don't know why all you Christians still keep believing in creation, because it's wrong. And he proceeded to give a whole lot of evidence for evolution, including the genetic evidence, which can be directly tracked today, linking a whole lot of different species by genetic mutation. Wow. Okay. We were thinking on the way back in the car, just, well, that's that done then. And it shocked me a little bit. I mean, for obvious reasons, but also the fact that I thought that I was a rational, logical person, and I'd been into all the arguments, I'd read all the books, I was convinced that creation was true and evolution was false. What I realised afterwards, looking back, is that what I had done was is I'd read all the books from the Christian side, and of course, all the books from the Christian side present the arguments that are going to persuade me that creation is true, God exists. On books on any topic, I'd read all the books on the Christian side, and I hadn't read the books on the opposing side. And when I read the books on the opposing side, it was just glaringly obvious that all of the things that I'd read before were just taking this one little bit and ignoring all the counter arguments. So that really hit me. So once I had that first thing and I started reading more widely, it just became more and more obvious that I'd been deluded all this time in that, okay, so if God didn't create the world, and if that whole section of the Bible is wrong, and there's no original sin, and the whole thing falls apart. It kind of got to the point where, at this stage, my beliefs kind of be tracking down like this. They weren't quite at zero, there's a zero about here, so I could see where the trajectory was going. I thought, look, this may take me another 6 months or a year to get there, but it's going there. I can see where it's heading, just get over it. So at that stage, I left the church, and I decided my New Year's resolution, maybe I've been missing out on a whole lot of stuff in life. With my Christian upbringing, I missed out on all the good stuff and drinks and drugs, sex and drugs and rock and roll. And thought, alright, my New Year's resolution, I'm going to be more bad. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for me. I was very disappointed. Because I found that, unfortunately, what could I do? I could go out and commit crimes. I don't really want to go and commit crimes because I still think that's wrong. I don't want to get arrested and go out and cheat on my wife. I don't want to cheat on my wife because I still think that's wrong. And, go out and get raving drunk. I don't actually like getting drunk. I was like, what do I do? That was depressing. Couldn't find anything bad to do. Yeah, it's sad there. Stop going to church. Coming to terms with... on the stop going to church, one thing that really surprised me with that is the lack of Christians who, had the whole church family. I was kind of expecting me to say I'm leaving the church and they'll be like, oh no, we'll come back. And you try and persuade me and talk about all these issues with me, but nothing. He's on. I left the church and basically no one said anything. And I've heard that from a number of people now, that I left the church and no one said anything. I don't know if that's because Christians don't want to engage in these arguments, either, or if they just don't care. I don't know. I've got no answer to that. But that surprised me. Coming to terms with atheism took me a long time, because it was basically embedded in me from birth that I was a Christian, that you pray, that we go to hell if we do things wrong. So it took me a long time from when my mind was made up to actually being able to physically say to anyone, I'm an atheist, or I don't believe in God, because I'm still a little bit scared. It's built into you. And just the instinct to pray when something's going wrong or you're stressed, the instinct to pray. Because it's just built in you. It took me a long time to get over that. I'm over it now. My life is lovely. I was very careful because I know that changing your religious beliefs can have quite an impact on a relationship. And I was very careful not to say to my wife, look, come up with the answer, here is your new religious beliefs, this is what we're believing now. I said, this is what I've been going through, this is what I've been thinking of, you're welcome to keep going to church, you're welcome to keep doing what you want, just keep talking about it. I didn't want to try and force her to believe what I believe, so she's been kind of going down the same path as I have, but at her own pace. She's probably she's more agnostic and I don't know what she is now, actually. She's less hardcore than I am. But yeah, that was quite important, I think, is to just be respectful of other people's beliefs. So if you try and, I think, similar to being an evangelical Christian, trying to force your beliefs on someone else's can be quite a damaging thing. I'm only doing it today because I'm sorry. And it's like I was saying before, reading books from the other side. So that original point of leaving church got me to about here, and then once I was at that point where I could start accepting evidence from wherever I could find evidence, it kind of kept pushing me lower and lower and lower, when I actually found good evidence that counteracted all of the stuff that I've been taught all my life, which was very interesting. So this is the view from the other side. This is going to be a little bit of the stuff that I came across after I left the church. And it has, in a way, made me quite angry at some of the things I used to believe. And I look back and think, I'm kind of embarrassed. You will probably think, some of you may think, the things I'm going to say are perfectly normal and what's wrong with them. But I'm just going to present them. So, biblical contradictions was a surprise to me that there were so many. You always hear people say, "Oh no, there's no contradictions." That's explained by that. There's a lot. From things as simple as who was Joseph's father, are we saved by faith or works? 2 different creation accounts. Divorce is okay and not okay. That's just a very random sample of the 400 odd list that I saw. And I know that as a Christian I would have gone to great contortions to explain why these things are not contradictions at all, but they're actually good things. Whether you can do that or not, I think is a little bit beside the point. For me, the point here is, if this is God's inspired word to humanity, shouldn't it be better? Again, biblical morality. I've got a couple of verses actually that I noted down. Again, on the thing of, if God is God and He's got His inspired word and He's the most perfect, wonderful being, and He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And here's a few things that He says in the Bible. We'll start with she killed non-believers in 2 Chronicles. Everyone who would not seek the Lord, the God of Israel, was to be put to death, whether small or great, whether man or woman. This is a lovely verse from Deuteronomy. If a man is caught in the act of raping a young woman who is not engaged, he must pay 50 shekels of silver to her father. Then he must marry the young woman, and he will never be allowed to divorce her. Which, if you look at it in the context, think, what the heck? Not only letting him rape this woman, but then you say, well, you have to live with your rapist for the rest of your life. In Exodus, when a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed then for 6 years as the men are. And this is a long verse in 2 Kings, when Elisha called out the bears from the woods to slaughter the children because they mocked him. Again, slaughtering 42 children because they laugh at you. I would say that's wrong.
It was because he was bored that they were laughing at his bored. Yes, you understand. I think it's justified. That's why none of my children hang out with Mark.
And there's the good old, if a man lies with the male as with the woman, both of them shall be put to death for their abominable deed. Again, I think that's wrong. And I think that a lot of the other verses around it are wrong. Why is that picked on by Christians is the one verse out of all of these verses about rape and murder and stuff. That's the one we should uphold. I've got a much more, but I'm going to do this for now. Genocide in Noah's Ark, lovely children's story where God wipes out the entire population of the world. Someone's actually been through and added up the death toll in the Bible. This is the actual numbers of people which are mentioned in the Bible, which God directly kills or instructs his followers to kill, versus the same for Satan. God killed 2,476,663 people, and Satan killed 10. That's only the numbers that he mentioned. That doesn't include the whole, wiping out the whole population of the world. And that's been estimated at a total of 25 million people for God versus 10 for Satan. So you're always looking back thinking, how are we saying this is a God of love and this is this wonderful, perfect being that we should worship? There's so much here that I find morally reprehensible now. We're running out of time. So, historicity of Jesus is an interesting one. That's one that I never even considered as a Christian. But there's actually, I'm going to skip over it, but we're running out of time, but you can read up about it or ask me about it later. So what have I lost? Becoming a raving heathen. So I lost a few friends when I left church, which was kind of to be expected. Is the built-in church community, which is one of the good things about Christianity, is the community. A built-in sense of purpose, so automatically knowing if someone asked me what I was doing with my life, I was like, oh, I'm serving God, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, don't think about that too much. And the whole prayer thing, so when something's stressful, having someone to offload onto to say, as a coping mechanism, I guess, as, this is someone I can pass my problems on to so I don't have to worry about them so much. That's what I'd say I've lost. What have I gained? Intellectual freedom, which for me is a big thing. I can now think things through based on the merits rather than based on what I'm told, which I did find really difficult as a Christian, seeing things which you're told to believe that there's so many arguments against, and there's all sorts of contortions have to go on in your head to make yourself keep believing them, and that's quite a struggle at times. I don't have to feel guilty anymore, which is nice. I keep thinking, have I sinned this week? Have I had my quiet time? Have I... whatever. The surprising one, which I've had from a number of people as well as myself, you don't have to be afraid of death, because there's not the thing like, have I asked for forgiveness from my last sins? What if I die now and I haven't asked for forgiveness? Will God really accept me to heaven? Do I believe the right things? Am I actually going to burn in hell forever? If you die, you're not even going to know. Who cares? Well, people are still alive here, but it's not something that I need to think. Defining my own purpose and priorities, again, it's a chance to be more who I want to be, rather than who I'm told I should be. You appreciate the natural world a whole lot once you understand more about where it comes from. There's a really good book called The Greatest Show on Earth by Richard Dawkins, where he talks about evolution, and the whole book, it's kind of like a kid in a playground. He's just so excited about all these wonderful things and how they happen and the explanations for them. It's great, and once you can get into that and you think all the reasons and the explanations behind things, it's amazing. It's great. And again, it's a bit of peace. I'm not in a cosmic good versus evil battle anymore. I'm not responsible for saving the world. I'm not in fear of if I'm going to go to hell or not. Where to from here? I can invite Christian conferences. Never happened before. I'm working on a documentary on leaving church, and that's not just people like me becoming raving heathens. It's a spectrum of people. I know some of you have filled in the survey that I did, and that's around why people leave the organised church and what happens afterwards and all this sort of stuff. So it's quite an interesting project I'm working on. And there's a whole lot of, I don't know the absolute truth anymore, so I can look forward to learning a whole lot more stuff as I go. It's enjoyable. You can actually have good conversations with people without starting with a preconceived viewpoint of I should be trying to convert them to this. That's about all, really. Yeah, that's me. So, you've still got pretty much as many people in the room as when you started? Yes. So basically, you just grab your little clusters there, just sort of find some people to chat to, and just talk over some of the things maybe that have got you going, or challenged you, or you agree with, or disagree with. Just have a quick chat for about 5 minutes. I'll get it before, come around and try and just gauge if you have questions you guys might want to ask to engage. Jay's more than happy to answer and unpack more of what he's talked about. So 5 minutes, have a quick chat. I'll come around and grab some of the questions you wanted to answer and go from there. I was going to have an altar call at the end.
Oh, just don't believe in altars anymore. The pizzles.
Okay. So just focus in here. Got a few good questions or sort of people wanting to clarify stuff. And I'm going to start with Mel Green because he seems to. I can't quite know this one's going to fit in the scheme of things, so I'll just do it first.
I'm wondering if you can see the possibility of someone being a Christian atheist.
Potentially, I think a lot of the stuff that organisations such as NCO is doing, and is trying to do in terms of helping the community and caring for the people who need caring for and all that sort of stuff, I think all that sort of stuff is brilliant. If you can take that sort of stuff, you can totally do that as an atheist, and you're doing what you would probably describe as the work of Christianity without all the rubbish that goes with it. So absolutely, I think you could and probably should do that. I don't know if calling yourself a Christian atheist would be very helpful for most people because they wouldn't have a clue what you mean. I think you could be a good atheist. I think the word Christian has an awful lot of baggage.
And then Hamish, you were, because it kind of carries on there about the faith journey thing.
Yeah. So, like, I suppose my perception of like a faith journey is that it's like a never-ending question, and it's something that you keep exploring.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering for you, like, you've almost at that point where you've found an answer. So it's like, is it an open conversation for you, or is it like for you a more so-called faith journey? Is this closed, or is it like an open-ended?
It's definitely still open in that I still understand that I'm still at the point where, and I always will be at the point where a lot of, like, there's going to be a percentage of things that I believe that are wrong. So I'm always open to discussion and examining my beliefs. I'm never going to say, I now have the absolute truth, I'm going to stop here and never move again. So absolutely yes, still keep moving.
Jays, you had a couple of interesting questions to add into that mix.
Do you then disregard like all spiritual beliefs and things, or just God?
Yes. I don't disregard them. I haven't found any evidence that any of them are right, or that any of them actually exist. Which is not to say that evidence doesn't exist. I haven't seen any. So, from my knowledge now, based on all of the understanding I have, I would say that I don't believe in any supernatural stuff. Is that your question, or do you mean spiritual in a different sense?
What would define yourself as like a spiritual believer, or just such as science?
Yeah. And I think a lot of what people describe as spiritual, so there's a lot of stuff which goes on in people's heads. Not saying they're crazy, but I think that can be explained in natural terms without resorting to a supernatural explanation. So I'm not saying it's not valid, and it doesn't. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because I know that people have a lot of experiences which obviously are very real for them. But I would say that is explained in a different way than they would say it.
We'll do the other question as well, Jay. About purpose.
Oh yes, we talked before about how you didn't have the burden of like knowing your purpose. So then, do you see a purpose for your life, or for like our existence, for mankind, or what is your purpose now?
I think I don't have a set in stone purpose. I would say that a lot of the stuff that I believed was good as a Christian in terms of, like what we were saying before, in terms of helping the poor and helping those in need and all that sort of stuff, is definitely part of my purpose now. I think making mankind as a whole better for everyone concerned, and making it fairer and more caring and loving and, equal for everyone, is a big thing for me. I don't think I would try and define a purpose for everyone. I think it's up to people to figure out what they want. You may decide that your purpose in life is to have as much fun as you can and then die. Fine with me if you don't hurt other people along the way.
Sarah.
So, in terms of explaining what you talked about, these new discoveries that scientists talk about being able to kind of genetically explain or rationalize species evolving into other species, for example, is that totally 100% totally confident?
Totally 100% confident with that. Yeah. A good book to read is what I was saying before, The Greatest Show on Earth, by Richard Dawkins, which actually talks about evolution from an evolutionist viewpoint rather than from a Christian viewpoint. The evidence that I saw that pushed me over the edge was in terms of mutations in a particular gene. I think a bit hazy on the details now, it was a few years ago. I think it was the gene in terms of the gene that produced vitamin C within the body. So some of the great apes produce vitamin C within their body, whereas humans have to get it by their food. So they tracked this gene and saw weird changes in it that happened along the path of different species, and they could say, well, there's a mutation, one very rare mutation happened in this gene back here, and you can see that now humans and chimpanzees and whatever the other ones were share that, and then this other trait, and none of the other ones in a different evolutionary branch, and then a different mutation happened here in a different gene. You can see the ones in this family of the evolutionary tree all share this trait because it's been passed on. We're not explaining it very well. The guy had diagrams. But yes, I would say there's pretty much no doubt whatsoever. Now,
just kind of in line with the scientific substantiation thing, with your faith in evolution and the scientific side of things, where does that all start from?
what do you mean, sorry?
Do you know what I mean? Like, how did it all start? Like, this is you explaining how it's happening now and over the years. Where did it all start?
In terms of science in particular?
Yeah, like, for me, I can kind of marry up God creating us and the world, and maybe evolution comes into that. That is the way
Yeah.
He's doing it, but He's started it.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I mean, I know that there are a lot of Christians who believe in evolution. For me, that didn't make sense because I'd already peeled so many of the beliefs back, and this was one of the last kind of big chunky bits left. But B, that's kind of the foundation of the whole Bible. If God didn't create the world, then we have, death and pain and suffering for however many millions of years before Adam, and there couldn't have been an original sin. And the whole, why did Jesus come? It was for the original sin, and all through the Bible it's talking about this being the truth. And again, it's the thing of, you may say that maybe God could have used evolution to produce us, and maybe he could have, but he said in the Bible, which is his inspired word, that this is the way he did it. And if we've now disproved this chunk of the Bible, then that throws a huge amount of doubt on the other things he said. Yeah.
But if you don't believe that it started with God, what evolution, where does it begin? Right at the beginning.
Right at the beginning. So
Where does it start from?
where does the universe start from? I don't know. The current scientific explanation is the Big Bang, and there's a number of theories for how that happened. There is no definitive answer.
there are these leading theories of why it happened. There is no definitive answer of why that is yet. I would like it to be, but I'm content with not knowing that for now. I believe that the process of science will explain the things that we don't currently know without having to. All through history, God has been invoked to explain the things we don't know. And gradually, the things we don't know have been whittled down, because science explains more and more of them. And I'm very confident that science is going to keep explaining more and more of them, so we don't need to invoke God to explain the bits that we don't need to understand.
Just want to take it as a different tack. Sue?
I just wanted to make a comment actually, so Jake, because there was a couple of times where I had this inner reaction to a couple of things you said, and I just got this, I was talking to Amanda about it, I just got this feeling. One was when you stated something, as I can't remember what it was, as I kind of walked in and heard something you stating as a fact, and I was like, oh, he's kind of speaking at me, telling me what I should think. That's how I do that. It wasn't what you're saying. And I realised that that's actually what has happened and all time in church, where people state something at somebody and tell them what they should believe. And the second one was when you were listing some things, I kind of had this counter, kind of argument. So I had freedom. I was like, I've got freedom. And I realised that, that's my everything about what I believe. I had all these things kind of built in historically that I just wanted to challenge. So it was really, really an effort for me to sit and just listen and hear your story. And I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. I appreciate you listening. Rachel, you've got some stuff around like the church and actually about listening and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to pass to Chris because she's older than I did. I was just wondering really whether or how the church could kind of provide space for freedom of conversation for the intellectuals or for the people who kind of want to know really. It's just
It's an interesting question. I was having a kind of related discussion with some people. I don't know if it's possible, because basically what I've been saying today is the outcome of that is that whether you believe it or not, if you say for a moment that this is what the outcome was going to be of this discussion, and the results of that would be that the church is wrong and unnecessary, we'd be doing the wrong thing all the time. So in order for the church to even contemplate giving that space, they would need to be open to the possibility, whether they thought it was likely or not, they have to be open to the possibility that what are they going to do, wind the whole thing up and walk away? Yes, I don't know. I don't know how you would approach that. You could say, let's be Christian atheists and still do all the good works that we want to do. But how does that fit into church? I don't know how you can resolve that, because it's kind of two completely opposing things, I think.
foundational stuff,
Yeah.
I guess it's also about engaging in good conversation, which we've been better doing. So people have choice, I guess, through that. Might want to talk a bit about evaluating values.
I just wanted to ask why you don't cheat on your wife. I didn't want to put Gus's name. No, just how you evaluate your values. I'm presuming it's probably around evidence-based kind of thinking. But I was also thinking, it sounded to me there was obviously some element of still being subjective. So you want to be bad, but hey, I don't really want to be bad.
Yeah, I think in terms of ethical stuff, it basically comes down to not hurting people. So cheating on my wife would be very painful for her and bad for everyone involved. Therefore, it's a bad thing to do, and I won't do it. I guess the outcome is the same, but instead of saying God told me not to do it, it's saying I believe it is wrong for this reason. Same with not going and killing people or stealing or that sort of stuff. I think it's wrong because it hurts people.
Whereas, all sorts of other issues that the church thinks are moral issues like homosexuality, I think you're hurting people by not allowing gay marriage. And allowing it is not hurting anyone. There's a balance there of not causing harm to people. And I guess that's kind of the foundation of how I decide what is right and wrong.
Are there any processes that you have with how you evaluate values now that I suppose are somewhat freer? Just in terms of dialogue, do you discuss it with friends, or is it just with a book or with your wife?
I don't know any specific process. Definitely discussions with random people. I think most of it's fairly obvious. There's not a lot of really weird things. Like, it's fairly obvious that you shouldn't just go and punch someone in the head. You don't really need to discuss that. There is more grey areas in terms of sexuality. Where if say, is it wrong to sleep with someone before you're married? I would say probably not. If it's not hurting anyone, but potentially it may be if it is. If you're being irresponsible and risking a teen pregnancy with you can't afford it. You're not together. It would be damaging for the mother and for you and for the child. So there's things around that sort of stuff which is more grey as to what's going to cause harm and what's going to not. For 95% of life, it's very obvious.
I was thinking more around things like abortion or euthanasia.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the ones that our society is still grey around.
Yeah.
And then how does then society evaluate those inside the context that you're describing when some will differ? Decide religion out of it.
Yeah.
Still can't make up our mind.
Yeah.
So how does that process outwork itself?
Difficulty. See, I would say euthanasia, absolutely go for it. You're avoiding the suffering of the person who's suffering. They want to die. No one's getting like this is a good thing all round. There's less suffering all round because of this. I don't see an issue with it. I think that should be legal. Abortion is more complicated and gets very, very emotional. It's hard to evaluate unemotionally, especially for mothers and fathers. I'm a single guy.
There's some truths coming out.
I have no children, so I guess I would think that maybe I evaluate it with less emotions attached. How we get society to agree on something like that, I don't know.
Fast running out of time, and we haven't answered all the questions, sorry, so please feel free to engage with Jay over lunch or the next day. But there is one more question I want to someone find it in. And wanted to ask around, obviously, coming from a family, missionary family, huge sacrifice in the mission field, in serving God, hallelujah. And I guess the question they're wanting to know is, was there value in that? Or do you see that there was actually no value? So in the early work that your parents did and wherever they went and whatever they did, do you value that, or was it a complete waste of time?
I would say probably on a personal level that taught them a lot, taught us a lot as a family, and helped us grow as individuals. I would say in terms of did it actually achieve anything worthwhile? Probably not. We were up in Papua New Guinea, running a Bible college, basically in the middle of nowhere, teaching new people to be pastors of churches. Given that I now believe that that's not particularly valuable for people, I would say no. And from my life experience, because I spend a lot of time doing beach missions and all the wonderful things that you do, and part part of me now wants to go back and apologise to those people and say, sorry, but I'm wrong, just ignore it. It's quite a hard one looking back, especially when you spent your whole life in the church and you think all was wasted, and it's hard to come to terms with. I know Mum and Dad have struggled with that a little bit. I don't know.
There's still good stuff and all that though as well, isn't there?
Oh yeah, there's definitely good stuff. I mean, it's not. I'm not trying to say that everything about the church is bad. There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good people. But I think outside the church, there's a lot of good stuff and a lot of good people. I was going to say something written question. Yeah. I can't say this one out loud because
it's an invitation in terms of exploring more backwards. Tonight, so why can I bust in the troubles? First, I just want to acknowledge this place, Jay, that this place has been part of your family. There is probably good and bad with this place, beautiful, but I just acknowledge the significance of this place.
That's fantastic.
Kind of acknowledge your journey and the journey of your family. Acknowledge that you've shared that with us. I think as a, whatever the hell we are, community, organisation, whatever, we're trying to be a place where, unlike the church, our relationships aren't defined by our views. Our relationships are defined by just the fact that we share stories, and you've shared your story. You shared it gracefully and respectfully. And I think with some bravery, because you probably had no idea what to expect.
I thought it'd be stoned.
But I guess more significantly, your story has value and worth and truth. And so I want to acknowledge it as well. And so I don't actually understand but just a small way to express that significance and a genuine appreciation of your story and your story that she does, and as your story continues.